Um, what? Okay, let me. OBS is being strange. Okay. How are you guys doing? Today, we're starting a new chapter here. And we are going to be doing the next language. Sylvan, yes, Juno. We're doing Sylvan. Hi, Jake. Hi, Miles. So, here we are. I'm just to I'm going to start out here. So, our last season, we did a whole bunch of work. We did Ndakaga, which is my version of Draconic. And I started that one intentionally saying we're going to limit the world building. I also chose specifically to do like a more ancient version of the language to also limit how much I would world build. And I kind of set limits for myself. This time, now I have ideas for this that will require a little bit more like detail. Humanoids. Okay. Um, and I did like some more research than I did. But before I just had just sort of vibes of what I know of like how dragons are. I did do some research on like the D&D mechanics of dragons. Um, but for this one, I really felt like I wanted to know to learn a little bit about like folklore behind fairies and like things that could give me ideas. Um, and actually, so I've been reading this book, Twilight of the Godlings by Francis Young, and this is excellent in-depth talk about the history um, of what we would call fairies and tracing it from like Roman Britain up to present day. I'm not finished with it yet, but it is very good and enlightening to understand a lot of things that are helpful for understanding like the position of Fae within modern understanding and modern folklore, and how that can translate into how you construct the Feywild for a Dungeons and Dragons game. Or officially it's called the Feywild. I'm going to call it Fairy. Just to be different. For now, we will also come up with a local name, and also I have come up with the Draconic name for it as well. Let me see. Look it up. In Draconic, it's Apugefü, which is Apugefü. It's from an obsolete verb that meant to face. So you can talk about it as like the facing world. And this, I'll talk about why I did that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about different things. I have another book about this. This focuses on Britain. I have another book that I haven't read yet that's about Ireland. And then I've got this book, Fairy, the Other World by Many Names. And it's useful as an overview, but I take everything in it with sort of a grain of salt because Morgan Daimler, first of all, it's kind of more of a popular book than the Twilight of the Godlings. And also, this author is like a neo-pagan and believes that fairy exists, which is fine, but like I'm here writing fiction, so like some of the focus of this is not necessarily where I am interested, and also like it feels like there's like a certain bias involved there. Also, it doesn't feel like it's like super well edited, so it's not like one that I do recommend. It just happened to be something that was available through the library. But Twilight of the Godlings is definitely good. And then when I get through that Irish Immortals book, I'll talk about that. Anyway, so stuff that I have figured out, that I have learned about. I'm dividing like general ideas that I have into three categories, like the older folklore, like the really ancient stuff, modern ideas, and obviously this is very simplified because like really fairies evolved from just like a complex interaction of Celtic religions and Roman religion and Christianity, and also later on modern ideas got added to it. And it's a lot of different folk traditions that don't necessarily agree with each other. So like here, so different ideas of where fairy is, a chthonic realm. In older folklore, a chthonic realm, a place that's underground or under bodies of water within fairy hills. The she in Irish, that actually refers to like burial mounds and things that they believe to be fairy hills that would be gateways to what is it called? On Sale Eel, I think. What was the name? Or distant islands. Like, if you look at the older stuff, it's like, oh, there's an island and like apparently like some of them were invented islands and some of them were actual real islands. Like apparently there's legends, if I remember right, that the Isle of Man is the land of fairy, and it's like, no, I mean, like there's just humans there behind mirrors. I haven't seen any of that, but I'm sure that sometimes you can have that. Sometimes, so in Scottish lore, it's like the fairyland or elfland is sometimes talked about as a piece of hell that they sublet. And every year or every 7 years, they give souls to hell as a tithe or a rent payment. That's interesting, but probably not going to. How do I know there's not fairies on the Isle of Man, Jake? Well, maybe there are. So in modern ideas, it's sort of an alternate dimension, possibly, or something that's woven in with ours, or something that's like purely a spiritual world that like it's not, that has no material existence but can be accessed through dreams. That's a very modern idea. In terms of D&D, fairies paying rent to Satan. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk about, because some of this stuff has helped me figure out one of my issues, in that actually, like in, D&D has like both fae and demons generally. Devils and demons are separate categories in D&D, but that's weird. Yeah, I can zoom in. Can I view zoom? Let's go to page width. Hold up a minute. I need to take this call. Okay, guys, I have a family emergency. This is very auspicious for the very first episode of this. I'm sorry, but I have to go and pick up my daughter really quick. I will be back in about 10 minutes. But thank you for your patience. All right, folks, I'm back. Oh, okay. What? Okay. People talking about Piranesi. Hi, David. Okay. So, hi, Jonathan. Okay, let's get back to it. My daughter had a fever, so she had to be brought back home. But mommy's on duty right now, so we'll deal with that. So, we why did that become small? Okay, I don't know what's going on there. But so older folklore, there were a lot of cases of it being sort of in a part of the world, or a part of, or one tradition of it being like a part of hell. Modern ideas is it's like an alternate dimension, or it's like you can go into fairy. Um, and then in the D&D mechanics, you do have to say it's a separate plane of existence because certain spells have to have that to work, right? If you have to be able to banish people to the Feywild, or know whether you can is scry bound to one plane of existence. I think certain divination spells you can only see within one plane of existence, things like that. So we do have to kind of do that. Um, we'll get to how this informs what I'm going to do in a minute. Um, Political structure is there's references to kings and queens throughout a lot of the older folklore. There's the more structured stuff, like the courts, the fairy courts and stuff, are more modern. But we're kind of going to use that now. D&D. This is not in like SRD stuff, but in some of the source books. I looked at some source books, and they have the Summer Court and the Gloaming Court, which are basically Seelie and Unseelie. So that's, and I'm sure that different like published worlds have different things, right? So it all depends on what's going on. And then we go into the nature of the Fae. So there's a variety of different beings. They can be they sort of evolved from like minor gods in like possibly in Celtic religion, possibly some of them from more like Roman cults and such, and just, but it's a continuous evolution, and you can't necessarily trace any one being all the way back to like ancient pre-Roman Celts, right? It's kind of like there was this niche that they occupied, that different beings may have gone into that same niche, but it was like a process of evolution, right? Sometimes identified with demons, particularly after Christianization. Just like the sublet of hell, there was sort of a part of like demonization of like minor gods was also fairies got sort of associated. A lot of older sources use incubus to translate whatever was they were called in the local culture, right? Which incubus nowadays is definitely like a term for a demon rather than like something. Always loved the fantasy of having a monarchy. Definitely not a resentment I must bear. Jake. um, um, and there's various names grouped. This is all these names are all just off the top of my head from Irish. The Aishi, Tuatha De Danann, Formorians, but they have different names in all of the different cultures. And we will have a name within Sylvan, possibly several different names. Modern lore, like I've been exposed to lots of more modern stories. They tend to lean on like the more of the alien, like humanoid usually, but alien in their outlook and such, which is useful. Uh, and I often see like fairies and elves as different categories, even though historically they were like interchangeable terms. Fairy ultimately comes from like French, from the Latin word for fate, and then elf is from the Germanic alf through Anglo-Saxon, right? Um, oh my. And in D&D, of course, there's a creature type Fae, and then the playable races that are known as elves, they're humanoid creature type, but they have the Fae ancestry. And an important part of that is not all of the Fae creatures in like Monster Manual and stuff have these things, but elves in Dungeons and Dragons are resistant to charm, and they do not sleep. Even if you cast the spell sleep on them, they are immune to that. They don't sleep. They require 8 hours of rest, but they spend 4 hours of it like resting and like 4 hours of it in a trance that is not actually sleep, right? That is interesting, and it could be something that I can play with how what the Fae does, right? And yeah, in Dungeons and Dragons they don't sleep. Let me look that up for you, David, so I can um let me go to characters, races. Let's go look at the elf details, and we'll go to, let's see, where is trance. Elves don't need to sleep. Instead, they meditate deeply, remaining semi-conscious for 4 hours a day. Uh, um, while meditating, you can dream after a fashion. Such dreams are actually mental exercises that have become reflexes of overuse of practice. So basically, they kind of sleep, but they don't. I think this actually comes from different lore. I believe even in like Tolkien stuff, the elves don't really sleep, right? The Yeah, yeah. The Eladrin are interesting because I looked at the Eladrin. Oh, they have this, huh? Yeah. This is actually okay. This is actually different from what I saw. There's like a supplement that has the Eladrin, and they come in seasonal variants. Uh, summer, spring, fall, winter, but they actually can change their season, and they have different abilities during for the different seasons. But they're not like the winter Eladrin doesn't have like cold powers. It's like it's like fall is like more peaceful, and winter is like harsher and more like offensive or something like that. But yeah, the I think all of the elf variants have that trance ability, it's not showing me immunity to the sleep spell, but I have, yeah, magic can't put you to sleep. That's right. That's it. Yeah. So this is the other mechanical part is you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. So because they don't sleep anyway. So that's interesting. So anyway, let's talking about like there's also common points that all of these things like time is weird and unpredictable. There's some degree of like heightened nature, like there's a reflection of the real world, but like mountains are bigger, the trees are taller, the forest is thicker, the animals are strange, things, all these kinds of things, right? And then fairy is somewhat close to or intertwined with earth, which is something that I really do want to think about. Is D&D is kind of going to expect you, especially with this, having it as a plane of existence, it's going to have you sort of want to treat it the same as all of the other planes, where you go through a glowy portal and you end up in the Feywild, right? I kind of prefer the idea that fairy is, maybe you can go to it that way, but it's more of a place where you get lost in the woods and suddenly things are different. And you don't know when exactly you cross the border, but somehow things are strange. Sort of like in the Heshor tablet, like we were in the desert and it was, and Joey described to us like you go into the red wastes and it doesn't look any different from the desert you were in, but you start to see fey creatures, right? Maybe elf trance is like dolphins sleeping half their brain at a time. I don't necessarily want to make things too scientific here, actually. And part of my thing is, so let me talk about like my own idea of cosmology for Dungeons and Dragons. My idea here, and some of this is related to D&D stuff and some of it might not, is instead of the astral plane, I have the dream. What the dragons call it, Fifeif, the dream of the world, right? And sort of all of the planes are contained within the dream of the world, but there are inner planes and outer planes. The outer planes are like the heavens and the hells, right? So these are the places where you go when you die. Inner planes would be things like the Feywild, the Underdark, the Shadowfell, things that are closer to the prime material plane or reflections of it. One thing I will say is like I can't necessarily go with it being underground because we also have the Underdark, which is literally underground, despite also being a plane of existence, right? So it does have to be sort of like you wander in the woods or you're wandering out in the wild and you end up there. So I think of the Feywild as being in this place and being sort of intertwined with the prime material plane. I also think of like the elemental planes. I think I've actually seen a cosmology that had the elemental planes like within the prime material plane, which is actually kind of cool because you go from more abstract to more concrete. Go from like, oh, the heavens where the dead go to rest and things are all about good and niceness and whatever, and down to plane of infinite rock, right? Logan, it's weird because you can go underground and go to the Underdark, Like you just go down in caves, certain areas, and you go into the Underdark. But it is also considered another plane of existence. So it's kind of like what I'm thinking of with the Feywild, where like you go there just by normal means, and it's not hard to see the boundary, but it's considered another plane of existence, and like a spell that shifts you to another plane of existence will work to get you to the Underdark. So yeah, it's but either way, if you have the Underdark, you can't necessarily say that Fairy is also underground, because that's kind of weird. Behind the veil. So, a thing that I'm thinking of, I am not necessarily... So, the idea of Seelie Unseelie, that specifically comes from Scottish lore. Another thing that people often have is like seasonal courts. But the thing with seasonal courts is like, yes, in the medieval fantasy setting, we can say, okay, the seasons are spring, summer, fall, and winter. And that also fits with the milieu of it coming out of like Celtic mythology and being very European, right? But, you know, people might want to be in settings that that don't have those seasons for whatever reason, either cultural or because they live in a place that's just a wet and a dry season. Or they live in a place that has monsoon, and monsoon like can be treated as like a fifth season sometimes. So it's not necessarily where I'm at, but I did think, so something I'm thinking about is we have diverse, and Fomorians are not actually Fae in D&D, but they're relevant. Okay. Anyway, you have these diverse beings here, and we have an implication that the Feywild is a big place. And one thing I'm going to say is like a thing that I'm not going to try to do too much is a thing I'm going to avoid is going to be defining too much about the prime material plane, because I don't want to do that much world building there. I want people to be able to use the language in lots of different settings. For Ndakaga, I think the only thing we ended up establishing really would be that there is a global magnetic field, right? Which, I mean, there might be some disk worlds and some ring worlds that would mess with, but you could kind of avoid, right? But I think fleshing out a little bit of some of these outer planes, some of these other planes, like Fairy, and then later when we go to Celestial and Infernal and Abyssal, fleshing out, having some information on the heavens and the hells will be useful, but not necessarily structured. And it helps that usually the way that fairy or fey realms are depicted, you can't really draw a detailed map of them because their space and time are weird, right? You can't necessarily, you can walk in a straight line and not get to where you're pointed. Things like that. It's very... Yeah. So, this is my idea. I have the idea that we're going to have sort of broadly 4 regions of the Feywild. And some of this, in folklore, there's often an idea of the fairy is in eternal twilight, right? I have expanding on that, and I think some fiction does this as well. We'll have a realm of day, dawn, day, dusk, and night. Yeah. And this region, I don't know, this it could be that the prime material plane is here, right? And this is not necessarily like even like a traditional map. This is like in higher dimensional spaces and stuff. Is not important. It's just sort of a conceptual idea of like where, and the idea is that I'm going to make dialects for each of these. And we'll have the Twilight ones will be very influential because they're like transition points, right? So dawn and dusk. But like you can see, okay, these two are adjacent, these two are adjacent, these are adjacent, these are adjacent. Day and night are not adjacent. Dawn and dusk are not adjacent. So you can have interesting interactions there. And we could probably do a little bit of very like rudimentary wave theory stuff with the languages. And then, and we're not necessarily going to go very detailed. So we're going to have the liminal dialects, the twilight dialects, yes. 4 dialects, right? Day. Let's go in order of dawn, day, and then dusk, and night. And we can think about like also like differences. And then these will be done to some degree, not necessarily fully developed on stream, but Shift Tab. Shift Tab. There we go. But then will be a koiné of those 4 dialects. This is, yeah, Logan, wave theory is a theory of language change that's different from the tree model in that it sort of acknowledges that features can spread aerially. So that's something I can later on I can get sources for that. It's sort of the idea that like branching trees are like an artifact of a language family rapidly expanding. Okay? But very commonly what you have is a change occurs in a particular area and spreads around languoids in that area, you know, dialects and languages in that area as an area effect. And sort of you get captured that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, wave theory. Yeah. Which with just 4 dialects, it's kind of pointless to even say it, but you can say, okay, well, like we can have the same change happening here and here, same change happening here and here, same change happening here, here, and here, but not here, sort of thing. No, I'm not talking about that. I was getting more into language, right? And so we have our 4 dialects, and we'll have a koiné. We'll develop each of these dialects to some degree. I'll do like a set of sound changes and a little bit of morphology for each of them, but then sort of koinéize them into one Sylvan. And I feel like that fits with sort of thematically what the Fae are and how druids and rangers would interact with them. Because remember, this is the spellcasting language for druids and rangers. And my idea here is like, okay, Draconic is an old conservative. The Arndakaga is an old conservative dialect of that language that is still spoken by some ancient dragons, and then wizards and sorcerers picked up on that from them and do their best to preserve that, right? Oh, that's great, Logan. But for druids and rangers, I think they have more active contact with the Fae, I think. And the nature of the Fae and, their penchant for changing fashions and such, even though they're immortal, maybe not all of them are immortal. Some of them are immortal, some of them just live very long time, right? Their penchant for sort of changing fashions would lead to them differentiating to different dialects and then forming like a koiné that they talk to each other in, which the druids and the rangers would end up using for their spellcasting, calling upon nature and calling upon the power of the Fae. But yeah, that's my general thoughts on that. So, I think I've said one thing I want to say, like, this idea of the Feywild being closer than like the Outer Planes, this is actually fits with a lot of folklore, because there's an idea, Twilight of the Godlings talks about this quite a bit, like with the Romans and also with Christianization, there was sort of a pushing of these like minor gods that eventually sort of evolved into the Fae, into this realm that was closer to the earth, whereas the celestial gods, the celestial like niches were filled by greater Roman gods, and then later by the Christian God and his angels and such, right? So it makes sense to me, falling from that. You're caught up. Good job, Bubba. That the Feywild or Fairy would be in here, and then I'd have the Outer Planes with the heavens and hells out here. From that folklore perspective. And then, this is kind of this exists. In fact, the seed of my idea was actually the podcast Guild Fellows, their last arc. What they went to Fairy, and there's a mention of a court that's called the Court of the Dawn, right? Logan, absolutely yes. So I said in Scottish lore, it's the sublet region of hell. There are various traditions actually that have it may have sort of co-evolved with the idea of purgatory, and it is an idea. It is like sometimes a place where the souls that are not like saved, that can't go to heaven, but are not like bad enough to go to hell end up going, just like purgatory. It absolutely has been associated with purgatory. Um, so that's absolutely a thing. um, in some traditions. I'm not going with that because I kind of want, leading into another part of Christianity. I want celestial, infernal, and abyssal to be part of one language family, and I kind of want them all to be outer planes. Yeah. Well, but even when it's not a region of hell, it's sometimes a purgatory like that. And then as a region of hell, it's still fairy. It's still fairyland. It's still like a land of abundance and of like this heightened nature and everything. It's just they're renting from hell. And it's not, the souls that end up going there are not necessarily like tortured like they would be in hell. So yeah. Um, um, so what we will do today, we're not going to necessarily get through too much today, especially since like I had to take that break. But what I want to do is we want to talk about let's just call it proto fairy for now. And we'll probably do like a stage of just the base language, and then another stage where we branch off the 4 dialects, right? But let's start with, and I should have prepared this, but I did not yet. So let's let me go find my stuff for this. Okay. And I want to... Okay, my games, home. Yeah, okay, so I need to... New custom room. And then how can I... I've got to figure out how to... Where is the... I'm just trying to find... I was preparing a bunch of stuff, and I did not think to... Let me go to... Where is my... Okay, I need to go to Conlangery. So... Okay. Now, how do I... So, are we going to play roll for vowels? This is my new way of getting vowels, and then maybe if I just drag this on here, or is there an import? Okay. Import, no, I want to. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. Almost there. Okay, I better go select it then. So, okay. So, if you remember, when we did when we did our for Ndakaga, we figured out our vowels and such. We just did, and I can zoom. I can see if I can zoom this a little bit. I don't think I can zoom too much. Okay, we did. We just rolled a number of vowels, and then I kind of picked them. This is a new way of rolling vowels. So here is a vowel chart, and there's a whole. I have a video on the channel called "Roll for Vowels" that covers all of how to play this, and there's also a PDF link there that shows you how to do everything. So, first thing you need to roll is your base vowel system, which is a D10. And I have a D10, a virtual D10 right here. We'll roll. And that's an 8. So we get a 5 vowel triangle. So E, we'll just call it and A, O, U. Okay? Now, let's see. Let me check the rules to see how do we. It looks like. Okay, I need to actually check with. Okay, so and then. So, okay, the last thing is the extra vowel. So now we're going to roll for whether we have long vowels. And with a 5 vowel triangle, if we roll a 1 to 7, we do have long vowels. So we're going to have long vowels. That's good. That's actually, I was going to contrive to get long vowels and diphthongs in this language anyway, because I want it to sound a little different from Ndakaga. And that's one thing that would be different. Now, let's see. Do we have nasalized vowels at the start? For a 5 vowel triangle, we do not have nasalized vowels. Now, let's go to the written rules. For extra vowels, finally, we determine whether we draw from the extra vowels deck included within this document. You roll 1d12. If the result is equal to or less than the number of base vowels, draw that number of cards from the deck. It's a little complicated, but so here's our D12. We have 11. So here's how we've got it. Now, we can't determine whether there's some vowels that are long and some that are that don't get lengthened. That's fine. We'll just assume that they all have long. Overlong is pretty rare. I just didn't program it into the system. So vowels. Let's insert a table. And we got we go 4x4 table. Front, central, back, high, mid, low. So we ended up with what? Yes, it is kind of a common boring system, but this is going to be our base in our, so we have E and long E, A and long A, and then A, and we'll go with long A. Yeah, that's good feedback, Lord of the Crumbs. I'm happy to see that you've used it. I have considered turning that deck into like a dice table, so it's not quite so much of a bummer that you don't use it. I could also consider like fudging the things to make those rare vowels a little bit more common, because like right now it's based on foible data, and it is just not super common for languages to have those other vowels. But we're conlangers here and we're trying to have fun, so maybe I could adjust it to make it a little more likely to make things a little more interesting. Yeah. David can't hold me accountable for a protophonology if I do it randomly, huh? And then, yeah. Oh, well, let's get the vowels. But before we get to the consonants, I want to add some other plans for features to include, because I do want to, yeah. I do want to like have some calls outs to like the origins of fairies, which means, yeah. Roll for the shape. I mean, triangles are the way that I handle getting a square system is that when you draw the cards, there's a chance to remove a vowel, and then you could end up like you remove ooh, and then you end up with a square system, right? But anyway, some features that I'm thinking of: initial consonant mutations. Of course, a feature that is well known from the insular Celtic languages. Inflected prepositions. Now, I've done inflected prepositions before, but as far as I understand, the ones that I did for Statiki don't work the same way as the Celtic ones. I think the Celtic ones are actually more like a contraction of the preposition and a pronoun, so they are not necessarily going to occur when you have a full noun after the preposition. I'll have to check on that and see how that works. um, the other thing is that um, uh, um, the and in Estatihi, what I had was more similar to like some Afro-Asiatic languages have the same endings that you have on verbs and on possessed nouns on the prepositions. So it's a different kind of system. So it would be interesting to do a different take on inflected prepositions. Another one, since I'm doing multiple dialects, why not have a PQ split? And if you don't know what that means, there was a sound change in Celtic languages, and I'll have to do research on that, where Indo-European hua went to pa in some of them. And this is like used as like a diagnostic for different, you talk about Q Celtic and P Celtic languages. So that might be an interesting thing to fit into our dialects. Maybe two of these have a P where the other two have a qua at some point, right? And then the thing is, like, some of this stuff comes from Germanic mythology, and I was thinking about, well, we could do if we do Grimm's Law in one dialect, it's going to be like really weird that these are all related. But if we could do like an umlaut, and what umlaut is as a sound change is just fronting of back vowels in a different context. Oh, PQ split also happened in Tolkien's Elvish. Yeah. It's been interesting doing research and finding how many of these elements make it into Arda. Because, like, you know, I read about, these islands are where fairy is in some of these stories, right? What is Valinor? Valinor is a mystical island that not everyone can reach, only some people can reach, because the world has been bent and only people who can sail straight can reach Valinor, right? Another thing is like the idea of the fairies being the fae, or the fae being closer to the world and separate from like the celestial sphere. Well, why are the elves in Tolkien's world immortal? Because they are bound to Arda, and they cannot pass through to the halls of men. They cannot pass through to the afterlife that humans have, which he doesn't say what it is, but presumably it's the same as whatever Christian things, because of course his mythos is also deeply Catholic, right? So it's interesting, and also seeing elements of this in other like fairy stories, and even in like the way that D&D does things too. Nope. So Welsh, Breton, Cornish are P Celtic. Scottish Gaelic, Manx, and Goidelic are Q Celtic. C or Q. So some of them lose the labialization. So the thing about that, why I did that before I started thinking about consonants, is that if we do this, you know, these things need certain prerequisites. The consonant mutations and the PQ split. Consonant mutations, I mean, we can probably do with whatever kind of consonants we have. Probably want a variety of things to start with. But this, obviously, we need a qua in the proto-lang, right? K-Peltic. Jake, what's K-Peltic? Oh. So, going into doing consonants. Consonants. That's what we can think about. So this is still proto-fairy. West. Anun from... Okay, yes. Because Welsh is Anun. Which... The Welsh actually probably comes from, like... there's like a bunch of different things, but one of them... Oh. So, Celtic. Well, we could consider that for one dialect, just to have some fun. But, yeah, so, yeah. He knew his stuff. Tolkien definitely knew his stuff and incorporated a lot of things. Now, let me see if I can find the paper. Because, so I have not made a roll for consonants yet. So that is because it was difficult enough getting roll for vowels done with trying to deal with foible data, which is horrendous. Mm-hmm. But I would let's see if let me find this paper. But like, yeah, so we're going to do consonants. We're kind of going to have to pick and choose to deal with consonants. But part of it, if I can spell consonant, I found a paper that did part of the math for me. So I can do this. Right? So this is talking about how many places do you have in plosives, nasals, fricatives, and affricates. In a handy little chart. So I can do this. Let's get into let's get our dice. I haven't turned this into a chart yet, but we can say, okay, like, but we can sort of wing it here. Obviously, these really would be all interrelated, but for now, we can just see how this works and decide, okay, that's a D100. And okay, I'll quickly jump in and actually turn this into, Excel, we'll just get a new Excel, and we'll just one by one get the things here. So we got 0.2, and then 31, no, not 31, 13, 31, 43, and then 21. So let's get this, and we go, I think This 2 places is so extremely rare that I'm just gonna get it out. Just ignore that. We'll go and then we'll just go with, okay, so equals this plus this. And if I have this right, then we should get to, okay, so that only adds up to, no. That's not right. Okay, so this, and then, no. So this should be 1, and then this should be 31. And then this should equal this plus this. And then if we get that, then we go down here and down here, and we get, oh no, this is just, and then this one should equal this plus this. Don't mind me trying to remember how to do my thing. That's not right. How is this not? These are supposed to be percentages, right? Why is it not adding up to 100? Okay, let me, I guess I need to look at how I did this before so I can make sure that I'm doing it right. So probably this has some, okay, so yeah, this is rounded, and then this is 8, this is this plus 1. Oh, okay, I see. Plus 1. And then that should be, and then let's see, what's the formula here? This is, so H3 plus F4. So this should be, that should be correct. I don't know why I'm getting, this weirdness here. So this, does this not add up to 100? This adds up to 95. So it 100% should handle this. Right? Yeah, so, okay. So, okay, I see. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing I messed up. Is that it should be equals that plus this number. And then it'll go up to 95. We'll just, okay, we'll just add. So I don't know why their numbers only add up to 95. But we'll just, like, fudge this, right? So we'll go with 32, 44, and then 22, and then we need, yeah, 33, 45, and 23 for now. And then, I mean, if we get a 100, then we'll do the 2 places, huh? Okay. Oh, more than 5 places? Oh, you know what? Actually, let's do that. Let's 31 and 43 and 21, and then like if we get above 5, we'll say like we'll have like because they don't have, well, if we get above that, then we'll say that we have like more than 5. That means that we would have like maybe a split between dental and alveolar or something, right? Okay, so I hope I don't get a split between dental and alveolar. That's annoying. I can't pronounce that. So let's roll. We got 98. It doesn't have to be a split between dental and alveolar. I could do. Is there a pharyngeal stop? Okay. So let's start making our chart. Start making our consonant chart. Okay. So we need a 7. Control. Yeah, we need a 7 by however many. Okay, and then we're going to figure out. So we know we have a coronal bilabial velar. So we're going to have P. Let's start with just doing like 1 p t k ka, and then we can and ha. Retroflex. That's great, actually. Yes, we can have. This is the proto-lang too, so we can lose things if we want to. Retroflex is nice, actually. So we will have, what is that? T. How do we? There we go. That's what we got. We've got retroflexes. We'll do retroflexes. That's a. We could have done. I don't know if there's a pharyngeal stop. We could have done some other things, but that works. Now let's. I'm going to. We're going to go over time a little bit, yeah. But let's go and let's roll nasals. Okay, so nasal. So we've got 3.5% of languages have no nasals, but we can't. We can't do necessarily that, but we'll go with. So what? I have the wrong thing up. Okay, so 3.5. We'll round that to 4. We'll round this to 2. And then 31, 32, 27, and then another 3.5. We'll round it to 4. That's probably going to equal more than 100. Equals some. Oh, it's exactly 100. Okay, that's nice. So let's go. So we'll roll our nasals. What did I do wrong now? Is this still? Oh, this was this should be 4. That has to be hard coded. Okay, there. Now let's go. Roll for nasals. Yeah, I can zoom in on the spreadsheet a little bit. Let me view, zoom, 200. So you can see what I'm doing. So I've got, this is your minimum value, this is your maximum value for the die. So this gets you the thing, huh? Topher. I announced it at the end of my feature of Ndakaga. I posted on all my social medias, and I posted it on the Discord. Okay, I could do a community post too next time, but we do need to. There are other ways that you can find out about this. So let's roll how many places we have for nasals. I don't know. 97. Why am I getting high rolls all the time? So what does that 97 even mean? That's the last bit, huh? That means we got 5 places for nasals. We're gonna lose some nasals. So we have nasals completely symmetric with stops, which happens but is not super common. So no, it's N. That's N retroflex. So this is there, and then this is that's it. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know where this is supposedly from foible data. Maybe I will do this calculation myself when I sort this out. Because I still need to do it for laryngeal settings, because they don't have laryngeal settings. Yes, Topher. You watching my Daka feature is much more important than you cramming for Spanish, than your Spanish test there. No, just do. And then we got fricatives. Fricatives. What fricatives do we have in the proto-language? So let's, I gotta quickly do this. So we're going to have, what is it? It's 7% have no fricatives. I really hope that we do have 7, round that to 7, 18, 28, 20, and 11. Remember to hard code this as a 7. And then we will get here. Okay, 91. So you can have more than. Oh, this is. Oh, this. Why did I. I'm dumb. I didn't think. I put an H here. This should be. This guy. Should be a glottal stop. Okay. So. Parchment Lore. By the way, Parchment Lore, after you commented, I checked out your channel. It's looking cool. Guys, check out Parchment Lore's channel. He's got some, like, cool conlang related videos. Linguistics for conlang related kind of things. 8! 8 to 14 is we only have a coronal fricative. We got an S. I think we're going to have to do a Grimm's Law in order to get more fricatives. Unless we want to just make it from the lenition that we're doing in order to get our constant mutations. Because constant mutations require you to do like several different lenition processes if you're doing it historically, right? And then the last thing is affricates. And then Africans going to be, that's a little different because Africans are not as common. So we go with, so 33% of chance of no Africans. We got 42% of just one. They're all going to be coronal, apparently. 5. And then we go grab this. And this needs to be hard-coded at 33. And does this equal 100? That equals 100. 3 Africans. It's not common to have more than 3 African places. $58. This is between 34 and 75. This is this one. So we got 1. So where do we want to put our 1 coronal affricate? We have a ch in Dakaga, so why don't we go with a ts for now? Okay, so I need to go and pick up a baby. But here we've got a solid start. We've got our vowels and we've got our consonants, our initial consonants, right? Next time, we're going to leave for next time. I'm going to flesh this out. I'm going to choose the different laryngeal settings. And I'm going to go ahead and then we're going to move into like proto-lang phonotactics and sort that part out. So, thank you all for joining me. I'm going to save these documents. File, save as, and notes, and file. Where's the dice tables? And we're going to have a all right. Happy conlanging. Oh, and Patreon link in the description too. Okay. Where is in stream? Good.